Honest to God, guys, I seriously can't believe I forgot Basketbrawl. I recently discussed the late-release Atari 7800 games from its initial retail run, and we went over such classics as Scrapyard Dog, Midnight Mutants, Meltdown, and all the rest. Well, almost all the rest. For whatever reason, I completely blanked out on Basketbrawl, and that shouldn't really be possible. It's such a violent sports game, especially for the time of its release. Many 7800 fans, especially fans of the late release stuff, hold this game in high regards, and perhaps rightfully so. It even got a Lynx port a few years later, so you could shoot hoops and bash skulls on the go. Anyway, as an act of repentance, I now want to take a look at both versions of Basketbrawl for the Atari 7800 and the Atari Lynx, and see if they were forgotten for good reason, or if they're two games that I'll never, ever forget again. Let's start with the Atari 7800 version of Basketbrawl, as it was the original version. It's believed to have been programmed by Blue Sky Software and published by Atari in 1990, making it one of the absolute final games to hit the Pro system. In Basketbrawl, you choose one of the tough and rumble street kids to play as, and you work your way through a violent, dangerous underground basketball league where there are no fouls, no rules, and the ref is only there to practice his knife-throwing skills on the players. It's a wacky idea, especially for 1990, and follows Atari's sort of wild sports games of the time. Another example of this being Ninja Golf. Now, it wasn't enough to make a good basketball game, they needed some sort of edge and something cool. And so, Basketbrawl was born. You choose from one of 6 basketball players, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Some hit harder but are super slow. Others are faster than the rest, but have the muscle definition of a wet noodle. I really appreciate all the options we have before starting the game as well. You can choose between 1 or 2 players, which team each player is on, how long the game lasts, whether it's a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2 experience, and of course, the difficulty setting. The higher difficulties feature more aggressive ballers, so you might want to start in the middle to begin with and work your way up to hard. These options might sound basic, but trust me, they're appreciated. From there, you start the game and take on increasingly difficult teams, until your player is too damaged to continue with the sport. It truly is barbaric if you think about it. But hey, what can I say? I really love this game. The graphics are pretty good for the Pro system, with the baller sprites being a good size, and the courts feature nice details. Team 1 always wears a purple top, while Team 2 wears a yellow top, making it easy to tell who is on whose team. You have 3 courts to play on, and they're loaded in order from concrete jungle to a park-like level, and finishing on a rooftop during the night. As I said, the courts have nice details, like cracks in the concrete, spectators watching the brutality take place before them, and of course you have puddles and stains covering the dingy, grimy courts that these punks play on. I really like the presentation, as it has that gritty feel that Atari really seemed to be going for at the end of the 7800's retail life. The gameplay is extremely basic, on the other hand. There are some added elements that will require some practice to master or understand, but for the most part it couldn't be easier. One button punches and another jumps when you don't have the ball, and when you do have the ball, one button shoots and the other passes. But the pass button can also be held down in order to throw the ball at your opponent's head for massive damage. It's very hard to pull this off, but if you can master it, well, the results could be devastating. As you play, power-ups will appear on the court, and they all last through the duration of the game. You have Milk for restoring your health points, a Fist to increase your power, and a Lightning Bolt to increase your speed. When you see these, grab them as quickly as possible, because your opponents can steal them as well. The actual basketball gameplay is as simple gets. When you throw the ball up to the hoop, it'll either go in or not, and the only variable to increase your odds is getting closer to the hoop. The fighting gameplay is just as basic. You stand in front of or behind your opponent and just throw your big meaty fists into their heads. Me personally, well, I really like the fighting, and the effect of your punch connecting with your opponent's head is nice. It makes their head spin around, and they make a funny and rewarding noise. Basketbrawl takes these extremely basic elements and combines them into something that's fun, especially with a friend, but it lacks longevity. Once I get 6 or 7 rounds in, I start to really feel the repetition of Basketbrawl, and some of the frustration will set in as well. The knife-throwing ref is just a jerk, and I honestly hate that guy. I know that's the point, but still, he's not great. And it's also annoying when your teammate gets knocked out and you have to make a go of it alone. It's not impossible to win, mind you, but very difficult. I wish they would have came back with a single health point or something in between each game. There are several strategies to win at Basketbrawl on the 7800, but my favorite is to just beat the heck out of your enemies and then just perform layups until the game is over. You can choose between 1-minute games, 3-minute games, or 5-minute games, as I said before, but I highly recommend that you do not choose 5. It's just too long, especially when playing against the computer. But 1 minute feels too short, so 3 minutes is just right. Well, actually it feels a tad too long, but that's alright. I wish the rounds were about 2 minutes or something, but I just recommend playing with either 1 minute or 3-minute rounds. It feels better than waiting around and throwing layups and dunks until the end of the round. Anyway, I could go on and on about 7800 Basketbrawl, but I think we should leave it at that. It's a good game, made great by just the premise and the thrills of playing it with friends. There are flaws to be sure, but most people will see through them and enjoy the fun that is Basketbrawl. That's why I give Basketbrawl on the Atari 7800 a score of 4 Proline controllers out of 5. On pure gameplay it would be a 3, but the whole package together is a 4 for me. Maybe you disagree. Well, let me know in the comments down below. But we have to move on, because a few years later, Basketbrawl would be revived on the Atari Lynx, in a game that's familiar in premise, but very different in execution. The Atari Lynx port of Basketbrawl was programmed by Hamilton and Associates and published by Atari in 1992. It follows the same basic formula of the 7800 version, but with many alterations. Some of these changes are really smart, but others are kind of odd, and they really left me scratching my head. First off, there is no easily accessible menu that I could find. The games always take 6 minutes, and there are no mercy rules, which makes for each game to go on entirely too long. In my opinion, anyway. You pick one player, and you have the power and speed stats as before, but you also have stats for your character's life and their basketball skill. It's great that they now have a different level of skill for each player, so some are better at making shots than others, at least in theory. In practice, I couldn't tell much difference between any of them. The graphics are surprisingly similar to the 7800 version, but with the expected Lynx flair. Once again, I really enjoyed the design of the characters, the backgrounds, and the different courts. And there are several more courts than before, with a schoolyard and a junkyard being added to the rotation. The sound isn't much to write home about. There isn't anything bad, mind you, but nothing that sticks in my head after shutting the console down. The presentation, on the other hand, is great, with the intro screen featuring punks lined up along a brick wall, just like in the 7800 version. But you get a ball that randomly flies into frame and knocks out one of the kids who are just minding their own business, and it's fantastic. The gameplay, on the other hand, boy, the gameplay's a mess. There is no 2-on-2 in this game, so you start out playing 1-on-1 with a kid in a schoolyard level. There are spectators that will come onto the court and take turns bashing whoever's closest. At first I thought there was one kid on each team, but it became apparent that these spectators were on their own team and just wanted to knock out anybody who got close. And this is just weird. I mean, I understood the knife-throwing ref to an extent, but the spectators joining in? I don't know. By the way, the ref has also returned, and he's toned down his tendencies. I find him much more fair and less frustrating than in the 7800 game. There are also levels now which progresses through different courts in a neighborhood. But each level has 3 games, and this is where the mess that is the gameplay really shines. After besting your first opponent, you then take on 2 kids alone, and after that you take on 3 kids, all alone. And let me tell you, the 3-on-1 was initially a slaughtering. I didn't feel like I could do anything. The numbers were just too much. And this was honestly because I like to play these games in a sort of bruiser mode. I want to knock out my opponents and lay up until the time runs out. However, in the Lynx version, when somebody is knocked out, they have a bar, where you must mash buttons in order to get back up. And I love this aspect, I really do. But in the 3-on-1 game, it makes the bruiser style useless, because the CPU gets right back up before you can knock out the second or third guy. So instead of playing the game how I wanted to, I had to choose the speedsters. That is, the only way to progress for me was to pick the fast characters and outrun my opponents so I can get boards and dunk on their heads. The fighting has also been expanded with more weapons and being able to kick this time around. And honestly, the jump kick is by far the most effective attack, if you want to make the ball leave your opponent's hands. Now there are still power-ups that increase all your stats, and they are still permanent, or so I think. But overall they feel less effective. As I said, outrunning your opponent in the 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 challenges are the only way to win. So the only time I get to play the game how I like is during the first 1-on-1 level. I really wish Basketbrawl and the Lynx would have kept the 2-on-2 of the original. But hey, I can respect that they were trying to give the game some more substance. They just went about it all wrong in my opinion. So having said all that, I have no choice but to give Basketbrawl on the Atari Lynx a score of 2 Model 2s out of 5. It's lacking the most important thing that the original had, and that's fun. This game has some great additions to the formula. Being able to get back up after being knocked out was fantastic, but they dropped the ball in too many other places. But you've heard what I've had to say about these two versions of Basketbrawl, so now I want to hear from all of you. Have you ever played either game? Have you played both of these games? And if so, which one is your favorite and why? Let me know about all this and anything else you have to say in the comments down below. And please, subscribe and hit the bell icon before you go. I cover all things Atari here on the channel, so you won't want to miss out on that if you enjoyed this video. Okay guys, I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a man who throws knives at kids playing basketball at the park right outside the Atari network, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. And until next time, remember to stay classy, Atarians.